So welcome everybody to Security Buyer Live. My name is Rebecca Spayne and I'm the Managing Editor here at Security Buyer International. In this big interview session, I'm joined by Yolanda Hamblen. Yolanda is a senior security leadership professional with over 15 years experience in management roles, both across physical and cybersecurity disciplines. Yolanda sits on the advisory board for IFPO and chairs the ED&I subcommittee, along with full participation on the mental health and wellbeing group as well. She's also an ASIS member and sits on the ASIS International Physical Steering Committee and finds ways to connect with other security professionals around the world in the Security Circle podcast. So Yolanda, thank you so much for joining us here today. Could you just give us a little background about who you are and how you got here today?
How did I get here today? I think the more years you rack up as a professional, the further back you have to go to remember. But look, I started out my first career. I've said this on many public forums that I was a DJ. I traveled around the world. And then I came back to the UK just before 9/11. And when 9/11 happened, it stimulated a real deep purpose in me to try and pay something forward, do something more relevant and meaningful in life. So I joined the police 11 months later. And it was just, I don't know, I think it was seeing the firemen go into the building that just triggered me. It triggered me because they went in selflessly. They had no idea the buildings were going to collapse. And I just thought, what am I doing with my life? Yes, I'm having lots of fun and doing little jobs here and there, and DJing around the world, but it wasn't really giving me a great direction in life. Joined the police, had a great time, found myself in a detective position after 2 years after I cleared my probation. And I really enjoyed that. I got to work on lots of very interesting cases from deaths in custody in prisons, namely HMP Rye Hill, and other really critical sexual offenses, rapes actually getting into court. So I took a lot of ownership over the crimes I was investigating, loved it, but it wasn't a job for me for the rest of my life. It's a pretty tough job. You are risking your life and sometimes your reputation every single day you go to work in that job. So I ended up sliding into the physical security industry and very quickly moved up the ladders. I started off as a security officer actually in a shopping mall. And my peers were very confused as to how I could go from locking up pedophiles to not even being able to arrest a shoplifter. But lots of lessons to learn. And I've been in leadership roles ever since, managing teams, managing departments, and thoroughly dedicated to security, dedicated to the protection of people, property, assets, and data. And here I am sitting in front of you today.
So a pretty prolific career in all sides of the security industry, to be honest. And it's good to be able to bring that knowledge and those transferable skills into different areas of the industry. I think that's very important. You also, as I mentioned earlier, you're on the advisory board for IFPO, which is one of our Security by Line partners, and you also chair the ED&I subcommittee. Could you explain a little bit the role of the committee and IFPO as a larger organization?
So IFPO really is an organization of inclusive membership. I remember years ago when I first started out in security, I didn't really have a lot of connectability to the wider security world because I wasn't in a membership of any kind. So I strongly advocate for anybody who isn't in any membership bodies to definitely look to join, not just one, join two. You'll be alongside great experienced people who will shape and mold your career. I think Mike asked me at the very beginning when we brought IFPO to the UK, because IFPO, the International Foundation for Protection Officers, is an international body with a huge, strong dominance in North America. And yeah, I couldn't turn Mike Hurst down. Who can turn Mike Hurst down? He is a legend, although he says legend. But no, he's a legend in this business, and it's really nice to be a part of all of his projects. And with IFPO, I stood up and wanted to be the ED&I chair so that we could look to direct projects around inclusivity in all of our activities. And also, being the ED&I chair basically means there's a consciousness that we have. So we always include diversity and inclusivity with our narratives, with our projects. It's like having a consciousness. I mean, we can't go wrong if we've got all of those right bits of advice all the way through the activities that we're doing, including mental health as well.
It's a fantastic kind of message that IFPO provides. And that's one of the reasons that their ability to be able to try and raise awareness for mental health, for inclusion, all of that is one of the reasons why we want to partner. Mike said is somebody that we never fail to talk to and catch up with at every single show that we're at. Really fantastic person. And somebody who wanted to take on this subcommittee, you've got to be an advocate for for raising the profile of equality, diversity, inclusion, equity, intersectionality. But what brought about this passion?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I said this recently when I delivered a keynote speech that sometimes when you go to interviews, you get asked where you failed and where you learned lessons in life. And I find that question so false and so misdirected to a woman. I said in the police, I was one of 7% of police officers that were female. And in security, I was one of 10% of licensed security officers that were female. And now in security leadership, I'm one of 5%. So I asked back, where did I fail in that whole process? And I think I accepted to be a minority in this industry 100%. Even when I was a DJ, there weren't other lady DJs. I was the only one I knew. I heard of other lady DJs, but certainly no one I ever met. No one as good as me. No, I was just kidding. But but I get it. There must be a part of my intrinsic DNA that is happy for me to be in areas where I'm constantly out of my comfort zone. I've always advocated for being out of my comfort zone. And I think when you are out of your comfort zone, you are all of your sensitivities are stronger, you're receiving more information clearer, you're receptive to what's going on around you and the direction you're going. And I think being in a comfort zone, it must be very stifling. And I just don't think it's for me. Yes, I've chosen a hard journey, I've chosen an exhausting journey. I think women collectively are doing a great job advocating for women at the moment. We are empowering others, we are supporting each other. We have a huge network on LinkedIn. In fact, if you look at IPSO, you look at SATIA, you look at the Women's Security Alliance, and then you have all of the different membership boards, including ASIS for Letitia, all the women in all of those membership bodies, we're all connected, we all operate together. So much so that you might know that there's a current sexual harassment survey being done. And most of the security membership bodies got behind, sponsored that initiative, and we're waiting very much for the results to come out, which I know are going to be very damning and very sobering to hear. So how we work together, I think, is the key. But for me personally, I love to have the men's narrative in all of my ED&I narratives, because you can't just singularly push an agenda without having people allied next to you in that whole mission. And I guess really I advocate very much for marginalized communities and intersectionality, because I have friends who are trans female, trans male. I have friends who are gay. I have friends who are non-binary, and I have an amazing network of friends. I'm very open to individuality, and I just cannot stand sometimes how they're treated. And I just cannot help but support the underdogs in society, which means we carry on supporting women too in the security industry.
No, definitely. And it's an honorable message. Speaking of women in security, this is one of the largest areas, like you said, that you advocate in. What strides do you think the security industry has taken to better equality thus far?
There are a lot of managing directors in the manned guarding sector at the moment who desperately want to advocate and promote and hire and have women on their boards and within their management structure. I've spoken to them personally. I've spoken to them about the direction that they want to go in. So I'm really happy that, and I think it's because we now have a much younger generation of the managing director. We now have Gen X MDs instead of boomer MDs. Now, there's nothing wrong if you're a boomer MD, because you're clearly good at your job, but there's always something very refreshing about seeing your own Gen X or your own generation being in charge of businesses that are shaping and changing how, we're going to be providing security services in the future. So I feel incredibly encouraged. There's some great role modelship going on, and women are being given more and more opportunities to thrive, to learn, to have great mentorship, and to be part of inclusivity projects within their workplaces. I can only advocate for that. When I was a hiring manager before in my previous job, I worked very hard to help women feel more comfortable walking through the door. And walking through the door is a metaphor for applying for a job, going through the interview process, feeling confident about talking about their skills and experience, and receiving feedback in case maybe they're not quite where they need to be. And that's why I continue to dedicate my time. If any woman contacts me, and I get women contact me now saying, "Oh, how do I produce a podcast? I listen to your podcast, for example. How do I do this? And how do I get into the cybersecurity industry? How do I do this?" And I always have time for them because just reaching out is really hard. I can't always necessarily be the one person they need, but I have a huge network of people who I can put them in touch with. And I think most importantly, I think all women should have a mentor. I spoke to a guy at Zoom last week. He's going to be my mentor going forward for a little while. I think we should be very proud of having mentors. We should be very proud of having key people in our lives who we can bounce ideas of and bounce fears and experiences. It just makes us better. And some of the best professionals have all had mentors.
I 100% agree. And just for reference for obviously the audience here, is there are some incredible mentoring programs, especially for women in security from both ASIS and from the Security Industry Association as well. So it's definitely promote you to everyone to look it up and find yourself a mentor, something that's very important, not just if he's been in the industry for, like yourself, over 15 years, 20 years, or whether you're just entering out in the industry. And I think also it's nice to point out as well what you said is the representation of different generations in the workforce now. I think it's something, don't hold me to the statistic, but can't remember the specifics, but there's about, I don't know, 70% of our current workforce is made up of millennials, Gen Zs, Gen Xs, etc. So it's definitely is how the world is changing, not just in society that we're looking at in our day-to-day lives, but in all the different industries and the work that we're doing. So it's nice to see that change. It's refreshing. And we're seeing new events come into the forefronts and agendas being pushed to promote that equality. We just had the Lead Her event last month, or beginning this month, which is great to start seeing that in the security industry. So just to follow up on the last question, how far do you think we still need to go?
A long way. I think a long way. I think when women find themselves asking themselves questions as to whether a process was fair or whether they were given an equal opportunity, or they're asking themselves, am I being paid the same as my male counterparts? And why are my male colleagues at work all going out and playing golf for the day? And I don't feel that this really includes me, and it's not intended to include me. And when I go down to the pub at lunchtime and they're saying, hey, are you coming? Do they really want me there? Or do they feel they have to invite me? Because if they don't invite me, they're not being inclusive. But they all just rolled off the tongue. There are so many other reasons women question how they fit into their workplace. I haven't had a woman boss for 15 years. And I'd love to have a female boss. I'd love to. So yeah, I think there's still a way to go. And there's also a huge way to go. Like I had a chat with a very good friend of mine. He would consider himself on the cusp of being a boomer generation, quite significant in this conversation. He said to me, he gave me that argument, best person for the job sort of thing. And I rolled my eyes and I went, oh no, we'll call him Derek for the sake of preserving his dignity. I said, do you understand that it's just such a sweeping statement to say best person for the job? We all want the best person for the job. No woman wants to get a job on tokenism. And there comes a point, even when you're in the interview process, which can be very tough, and you think, am I the only woman here because I'm a strong enough candidate to say they interviewed a woman at that senior level? There are loads of questions going through our minds. So I think we have to be very sure about our narrative. We have to study all the time, make sure that we're good. We know our figures, we know our statistics, and we know our narratives. And it's taken me an awful long time to understand my own narrative. But I surround myself with other women who maybe are open and out feminists. They're very strong. They have their very strong opinions that I don't necessarily agree with all of them, but I'm certainly supported by that stronger narrative, thinking, okay, I am right to feel the way I do. I'm right to maybe have those doubts. Maybe there's a reason I'm feeling this insecure in my workplace because I'm deliberately not being included when I should be included. And I think that's why women should definitely seek a mentor. Any of those questions have resonated and you find yourself thinking, oh my God, I feel the same way. I think I'm just being invited along because they're going to get in trouble if they don't invite me. I just think get a mentor, find women in the industry. And if you do need a mentor, just come to me. I'll find you somebody, a whole network of people. Don't ever sit there and think, I don't know who to go to. Just use me as the funnel. And then I will point you in the direction of somebody who can help, as I do all the time, because my own capacity to take on more females is very limited. You have to set yourself a limit.
One of the biggest challenges that we're seeing in the industry is actually recruiting women. How do you think that we can change the perception and the reputation of the security industry to make it more appealing, not just for young women, to all young people?
Yeah, and I would definitely include our LGBTQ plus community as well. In my last job, somebody very senior to me said that there was somebody on his management team that hadn't yet come out because of the generation they're in and the fears of their work environment changing and not being received or treated in the same way. That's horrifying to know that there is still probably a huge number of people who aren't able to be their true selves at work in a business that promotes being able to be your true self. And so I think about all those people applying for jobs and going through the recruitment process. Personally, I find it reprehensible that I have to tell people whether I'm married or divorced or single just because of the prefixes I have to use, Miss, Mrs. or Ms. And I'm thinking, why is my married or single status relevant to anybody in the interview process? And then I'm aware that there are the emergence of other options like MX, for example. And I'm thinking, if I put MX, does that mean people think I'm trans? So there's lots of biases and perceptions around that. And this is just the interview process. And then in the interview process, not only do you hand over your whole work library in respect of all of your values and jobs and responsibilities and things, but then you have to answer those questions afterwards around what your age is, what your ethnicity is. And part of you is still thinking, why do they need to know that at this stage? If they're going to pursue my application further, why can't they ask me these very personal questions? Why do I have to tell people what my religious preferences are? Why do I have to say what my sexual identity is and whether I identify as female or male or neither? So I think that's just the application process. And I find that infuriating that I have to give all of that information. So I've now started to go through this very sort of zero tolerance where I just put prefer not to say, decline to say, prefer not. This is not relevant. Either you like my CV, you like my abilities, you want to see me further, and you want to explore the opportunity to have a conversation. Let's not. Do you know what I mean? So when you think about that process, and then you think about getting in front of the right person who's hopefully going to receive you and not want to hire in their own likeness, which does unfortunately prejudice against women being hired. I've had bosses that have turned around and said things like, "Oh, I don't mind you hiring more women, Yolanda, but what happens if it goes the other way?" And this is within the last 2 years. And you find yourself thinking, oh my gosh, have we not moved on at all? And I've very strongly campaigned to hire the right women for the job. And I've had male peers say to me, have you only hired her because she's a woman? And I'm not even an out and out feminist. But I just said, would you say that if the candidate was black? So I think there's still a lot we can do as women, as assertive women. And I use that word importantly, assertive women, because I think we have to educate those men that it's not something to be scared of if the percentile of a traditionally male dominated department suddenly starts to go into 50-50. There's nothing there to threaten the existence of the emergence of manhood. It's about having safer environments. And I'll be very honest with you, there have been very few environments because they've been predominantly men where I have felt totally safe to be me.
Just to go back to the application as well, I think it's also not just the kind of why do I need to present whether I'm married or in a heterosexual or homosexual relation, whatever. But it's also the fear of going back to what you said is if I put this down and I admit to this, is it going to be held against me? And
Yeah.
do I want a company to not go through my application because I might have mental illness or a disability or I might be married to a woman or so on and so forth? There's so many different contingencies. And in most cases, hopefully in most cases, that doesn't impact you or we go against the Equality Act or anything like that. But the culture around it, it's where it's those questions are arose and it's personal, it's within you. You're asking yourself those questions. So I think that's what makes it really difficult as well. And just to, and I'm also speaking from a gay woman in the security industry as well, happily married. My company absolutely fantastic and always so proud when I came out in the workplace when I joined the company. A lot of other people are unfortunate to be in that environment or to feel safe enough to feel like they could be in that environment. And just to retreat as well back to something you said that you hadn't had a boss in over 15 years. A female boss, sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah, there's a severe lack of women in director or board level CEO type roles, women who have a seat at the table. How do you think that we can change this from obviously from recruitment all the way up to senior level?
Yeah, I take a personal responsibility now to advocate for others, which means that I do stick my head above the pulpit. And I advised a recruiter recently that I thought the language that she had translated from the client was very masculine in tone. And I said, this is exactly the sort of language that women look at and think, oh, I'm not going to be good enough for this job, because it made me feel like that. And I was thinking, okay, so very kindly, I said to her, look, I'm going to provide you some feedback. I love women recruiters though, because women recruiters have the ability to look way beyond the CV. They see the person. Unfortunately, not all male recruiters see the same thing. They're looking for logical fit, logical word matches, logical ticky boxes, everything fitting in line. And I have noticed there's a huge difference. So if a woman recruiter contacts me, I'm always going to have a better relationship with her and a better communication style and better success. And they're more likely to sell you in to the client. And if the client or the hiring manager is female, we're all of a sudden feeling a little bit more aligned. It's feeling warm and fluffy and safe. And why is that? Because we all think alike and we all know that we've all been minorities in our role. And I'm not suggesting that people be antagonistic in their jobs and their careers and with their teams, but I do think we have a responsibility to speak out, because it's only because minority of people have spoken up that they end up becoming notorious or being branded troublemakers. But if more people speak up to rights and values and entitlements, as the Gen Z population will become a lot more vocal in how they think and feel and where they're prepared to work and what conditions they're prepared to accept, I think we should all be very open and transparent with our line managers and have good, clear conversations around those psychological contracts within the workplace, which invariably are very often broken and very early on. So I think we have a responsibility to have good psychological contracts with our employees. And yes, I will find the opportunity to compliment female recruiters. I'll give them a lot more of my time. I'll also provide feedback when that communication or that narrative, the language just wasn't right. It wasn't inclusive language. And I think just knowing that means I can advocate better for it. Can't change the world by myself. I know there's lots and lots of other men who think the same thing. They also want to see more equity in the workplace. And again, if we can just break away from this culture of a certain percentage of the population seeing us as annoyances, seeing us as nuisances, seeing us as troublemakers, we have to move beyond that. We have to move through it, because if Madonna took that advice in the early days, she wouldn't have made a second album, and look where she would be now. So I think you just have to be very determined with your narrative and your focus and your purpose, and try and find good fits for you. Surround yourself with great people who inspire you. And I love being around people. I love feeling like the dumbest person in the room, because that means I'm around great people. I'm not intimidated. Quite hard though to get me to be the dumbest person in the room, but I love it because those people stimulate me and they inspire me and I feed off it.
Speaking about surrounding yourself with the right people and people that can help you learn and you develop, not just personally, but professionally as well. I think it's incredibly important to establish yourself with a network, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's at shows, whether it's in your business that you're in, and it's companies you work with, your clients, so on and so forth. How do you think that someone's network basically can improve their reputation, their chance of getting a job, or help instigate change or bring about awareness of this collective kind of narrative that you're speaking about?
I always say to young professionals, make sure you've got a really spanking LinkedIn profile and connect with everybody in your industry. Start off by searching for on LinkedIn the same job you're in. Connect with those people doing the same job. Look at how they're promoting themselves. Look at what they're saying about themselves. Then look at the job you want to be doing. Start searching people doing the job you want to be doing, looking at how they're promoting themselves, marketing themselves. What are they saying? Where's the thought leadership? Find thought leaders, find global influencers, find people are following. Get all those recommendations. Every single job you do. Don't just find bosses and peers to put great recommendations in for you. Find clients to put great recommendations in for you. And also have your underlings put great recommendations in for you. I always say when people look at my recommendations, I've got clients, I have peers, and I have underlings, people who I've mentored, coached, supported, people who I've managed. And you get a really good feel, because anyone can say they're great at managing clients. Anyone can say, yeah, this colleague of mine's really good at their job. But when you've got people who work in your teams, are junior to you, happy to say what a great job you're doing, how you make them feel at work, that's invaluable. And also on LinkedIn, when there's a company that you're interested in working for, you go onto their LinkedIn page. There's actually a little tab that you can click that says, would you like to work for us? You just click yes, and it means that you've flagged up already in their hiring manager network. And they'll recognize you as somebody who's interested in working for their business. I had someone say to me back in 2017, oh, yeah, you should go and definitely do speeches and things. And I'm like, yeah, but what am I going to say? And then my mentor at the time said, the narrative will find you. And so just be open to it. Be like a little octopus with tentacles out. Just be open to it. And usually it's something that drives you. Usually it's a passion. Sometimes it's just because you can't help it. Get to know who you are, find out who you want to let you know who you are, and then find out, who you want to be. Find the right people to shape you and mold you and help you achieve that. That's what the mentoring piece is all about as well.
That's a really nice message to end with, actually. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you taking time to speak with me and speak with everyone watching today as well. And if anybody wants to find out more about what IFPO do as an organization, then please connect with the exhibitor profile and also connect with Yolanda on the profile as well and on LinkedIn and add her to your network. Thank you.
Thank you.